Yeah, buddy, welcome back to All In Sports. It's your boy Lee. Nah, I'm not Lee Ice. Maybe you guys recognize me. I've been on the show a few times. I'm Brian Sweeney. I'm joined by my son, Brian Jr. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
What's up?
All right, so taking over the show today. Talk a little UFC today. First, as we always do in traditional All In Sports, do a little toast. All right. Let's get to the State of the Union and what's going on in sports this week. Archie Manning has announced that Arch Manning will not be coming in the NFL 2026 draft. He will stay at Texas for another year. How you feel?
I mean, I hope it's not another Dion Shador thing. You got a family member speaking on behalf of their children, and it just causes a whole bunch of chaos. Nothing is coming from Arch. He hasn't played a snap in college yet. We're already talking about him being drafted. I mean, first overall, it's a Trevor Lawrence kind of thing. It's a lot of hype. It's exciting, but to me, anything said right now doesn't mean anything. I don't think teams that are counting on him being in the draft should take that into any kind of seriousness. I mean, it all depends on what he does on the field.
Yeah, we've seen this before. Guys staying a little too long, and it hurts their draft capital later on. I mean, he's
Absolutely.
It probably won't hurt him too much unless he's just awful. But yeah, so I know a lot of teams are waiting for him to come out.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see. All right, the onside kick rule has changed again this year. Last year, the onside kick, you could only kick it in the fourth quarter, has been modified this year, where you can kick an onside kick at any time you want, as long as you're trailing. But you can't do surprises still anymore. You still have to let the officials know, but I think it's a little better this way. Not being able to do onside kicks until the fourth quarter, I thought was kind of silly. So how you feel about that new change to the rule?
Yeah, last season you saw a total elimination of onside kicks. It wasn't even a part of the game. In terms of surprises, that's not a huge deal to me. I mean, that's really only happened one time in an extreme, Sean Payton's onside kick.
That's the most famous one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to take it out of the game, and this is definitely a better rule. I still don't think it's going to happen that often, but I'm glad that it gives teams a bigger opportunity, because if you're down by a large amount and even in the third quarter, you see coaches go for it all the time when it's not even. But so to have it if only in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter didn't make any sense.
Football is back. Preseason is officially underway. One of the most anticipated debuts in the NFL happened yesterday. Shador Sanders took the field. Pretty good. 14 for 23, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns. Some fans are already crowning him as the next guy. How do you feel?
Yeah, I actually saw a quote this morning of him saying that that was their Super Bowl, and it might be the most exciting game for the Browns this season. I mean, he looked good. I mean, he looked good. It's preseason. I'm not going to take anything too exciting, but he looked poised. He threw 2 touchdowns. One of them was not a full drive. But he looked like he didn't look completely silly. Not that many mistakes, and so they should definitely be excited. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's everything.
Yeah, but when you're a Browns fan, any hope is good hope.
It is, yeah, it's true, and I think he gets that.
All right, Gillette Stadium, they debuted the statue of Tom Brady. Now, as people might know, I was watching the show. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, so I not really like the statue, but I can't deny that he doesn't deserve it. I actually thought the statue looked pretty decent. I think he looks pretty good. He looks like him, and I guess it's new, so burn it up. How do you feel about the Tom Brady statue?
Tom Brady is it's going to be one of his first of many statues. I'm sure he'll have a statue outside the Hall of Fame in Canton.
If they do that, he'll have it somewhere.
He'll have a bigger head than everyone else. Yeah, I mean, him being, glorified as the GOAT, it's true. So and there's no denying it. And it's cool for the Patriots. It's cool for the fans. It's exciting.
All right, moving on. Lions cornerback Morris Norris was carted off the field, and the game itself was suspended. Although I don't think they're going to restart it. The Lions, it was up 17-10. Was taken to the hospital. Reports this morning look like he's going to be okay. He's reported to be stable, and he has feeling in all of his legs and arms and everything. So it looks like it's got by with a big scare, but another, big injury on the field after Damar Hamlin a few years ago, and everybody remembers that. So, but glad that he's doing all right. Praise to him and his family. How you feel about that?
I mean, we're seeing it a little too much this preseason. Injuries seem to spike every year. In terms of serious injuries, like you said, Damar, the Tua stuff was scary when it was happening. Anytime you're not carted off the field but put in an ambulance, it's always holding your breath, hoping that it's not something that's going to affect the league or something that's going to be insanely serious. But yeah, I mean, prayers to him and his family. I think he's, like you said, he's doing fine now. But it's always scary when that happens, and it's always scary in the preseason because it's exactly when you don't want that to happen.
All right, I believe as of this recording, history is being made in Major League Baseball, as Jen Powell will be the first ever woman umpire. And I believe the game is going on now, and I believe she's one of the umpires. So we are recording on a day of history in sports. How do you feel?
It's true. I actually did not. I'm surprised it's not getting more run. It's actually a very big deal. That's
because football preseason's going on. Nobody cares about it.
The umpiring situation in the MLB is always. I mean, no umpire gets by without complaints, right? Yeah. So she's not going to be any different. She's clearly fit and qualified for what she's going to do there. And it's a major step forward for Major League sports in general. It was a big deal when the NFL did it. And it's a big deal now.
All right. So coming up after the break, we are going to talk UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And they announced something a few weeks ago that I think is pretty groundbreaking. So we're going to cover that and just do a little history on the UFC. And we'll see you guys coming up.
So every one of our national park battlefields and historic sites are going to have special events in honor of America 250. And I even think we're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have, does anybody watch UFC, the Great Dana World? We're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little, we're not, Daniel's going to do it. Daniel's great, one of a kind. Going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people. And we're going to do that as part of 250 also. We're going to have some incredible events, some professional events, some amateur events. But the UFC fight's going to be a big deal too.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm joined by my son today, and as you just heard, was our current president, Donald Trump, making an announcement about the celebrations that they're going to have at at America's 250th birthday. And one of the announcements was they're going to have a UFC fight on the lawn of the White House. Now, as a giant, diehard UFC fan as I've been for over 15 years, this is a pretty big announcement. Politics aside, this is not what this show is about. This is about sports. So whether how you feel about the current president, not really what we're going to talk about. We're just going to talk about the idea and, having a professional sporting event on the lawn of the White House. Just to start off with that, how do you feel about the announcement of having a UFC fight on the White House lawn?
Yeah, like you said, purely non-political, coming from a sports fan, and even bigger so, a huge UFC fan. You've been a fan since really the birth, early stuff, and then I've pretty much grown up on it and, seen so many of the major fights that Dana has been able to put on throughout the years. Everything just feels more grand as time moves on, and now you have the current president who happens to be a huge fan of the sport, getting behind it, and now it's on literally, biggest, you think of big stages, Madison Square Garden, you think they've done it, you think
international
Wembley,
yeah.
But this is, we're talking about a completely we're talking different than that. This is the White House. This is something totally unprecedented, and I think every UFC fan should be absolutely excited for it. It's clearly going to take a lot of people, smart people, to really make it work in a safe manner. But it's incredible. It's going to be amazing.
The one thing about the UFC is that, especially under Dana's control, they've always, when they've had high marks, they've hit them. UFC 100 was massive. It was the biggest at the time. 200, 300. It's in Madison Square Garden with Conor McGregor. So Dana's never disappointed. And even the clip with Trump saying Dana's going to take care of it. Trump's not going to be really involved in anything, so let Dana kind of handle it. And UFC has proven over the years that they can hit stuff with this kind of magnitude that nobody has done in a long time. Boxing hasn't had something like this in years. For boxing fans, they have the Thrilla in Manila and they have the Rumble in the Jungle. And to me, this is UFC's. This is it. They're gonna have a fight on the White House. Like this, I believe, will be talked about for years for the sport and be their kind of landmark show. UFC's come a long way. Back when it first started in 93, 94, it was labeled as human cockfighting by John McCain. It was one of the most famous ones to label it that. He went out of his way to pretty much get rid of UFC, where it was banned in so many states, and couldn't even really get on pay-per-view. And the Fertittas and Dana White have bought it. They bought it years and years ago and brought it up pretty much from nothing. And it's funny to think about. They went to Madison Square Garden just a few years ago, where they took them that long just to get cleared to be in New York City, because there was still a stigma on the UFC, and this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And now the president himself is going to have the UFC on the White House lawn. And to me, it's only, the UFC's only been around 30 years. It's been just a little over 30 years. That's nothing for any kind of anything, let alone a sporting league. To go from literally not being accepted by anyone to being put on in front of the White House, as a fan, it's very exciting.
I 1,000,000% agree, and with comparing it to something like boxing, I would say if boxing were to put on a fight of that magnitude in a location like that, I think you're going to want to see, or depending on the decade, you would have expected to see a guy like Tyson. You want to see Holyfield, anyone with a name. This is in my opinion, the sport. The people are excited to watch the UFC. Now, it might be Conor, it might be Jones, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, but I think you're right. If it would have been announced something like this in the 90s, it would have been announced based on them having Tyson versus Holyfield or something like that.
Exactly.
It would have been announced, we're going to have a boxing fight and then fill in the gaps later. Mm-hmm. Right. This was announced based on the sport, and then we'll announce the card later because that's a good point. And
I think it's incredible. Yeah.
It shows how big the sport has become. It's not quite where maybe Dana had predicted it was going to be in the States, where it was going to rival football. I don't think anything in our lifetime ever rival football, but as far as globally, it's big, and it's they put fights on in lots of different countries, and it's England, and they produce champions from Brazil and Canada and Mexico, and it's great. Some people, and I also believe this might be an opportunity. There's no announcement at whether or not it'll be a pay-per-view or not, or whether it'd be picked up by a major. This could be an opportunity for a lot of people that have never experienced UFC to watch it. I don't know how they're going to stream it or how it's going to be viewed, but this could be an opportunity for just the spectacle alone of watching something with the White House in the background could draw a lot of attention, and I don't think he's specified the date. I don't know if it's going to be actually on July 4th.
I thought he did.
Is that okay?
I thought, or at least Dana did.
Is that a Saturday? We have to do it.
Yeah.
UFC fights are always on a Saturday.
Yeah,
this is something a little
Wednesday.
different.
That would be.
But there's we don't really know anything about the card yet. We're going to discuss a little more about the card of what we think. There's a lot of names that have been thrown around, a lot of guys that have either retired or haven't fought in a while that have kind of immediately have spoken about wanting to fight all of a sudden again because of the fight, being at the White House. I've also heard rumors that, boxing might try to get involved. They might have some kind of boxing matches with UFC also being owned by TKO, who also owns WWE. There might be some where they try to do some kind of wrestling event attached to it too. After all, Donald Trump is a WWE Hall of Famer. So there's so much potential with this as far if you're a wrestling fan or a UFC fan or a boxing fan of what this could be, or it could all just fall through and not happen anyway because of the magnitude of it. But it's exciting. And then coming up after the break, we are going to continue talking about the UFC at White House. Maybe potential fights, rumors of what the card could be, and what our opinions are on the fight. So we'll catch you coming up after the...
wants the American people to enjoy the White House. This is our place. It's all the history that's there, and he loves the sport, so he wants to do a UFC event there. And why would we say no to that?
Yeah, that's crazy. What are ticket prices would like to have?
I don't even think we'll sell tickets to that event. Yeah, I think they'll all up. Yeah.
How many fighters reach out to you that want to fight?
Everybody wants to.
That's what I was.
Oh, welcome back to the show. As you might have heard, that is the boss of the UFC, Dana White, talking about the upcoming White House UFC card on July 4th. And during the break, I was able to find out that, yes, in fact, July 4th is on a Saturday. So that's, So Good timing by the president. So what I want to do is kind of maybe just talk about what potential of the card could look like. Some of the names that have been batted around, and some of the names that want to be obviously everybody wants to be part of the card. But so coming up in October 25th, the heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall will take on Cyril Gane. Everybody's speculating that the winner of that fight will take on John Jones on the White House. Those have been following the sport. There's a lot of stuff about John Jones, how he wouldn't fight Aspinall. He wanted to fight Francis Ngannou, and then he wanted to fight the light heavyweight champion. And then he retired. And the second they announced the White House card, he immediately announced his retirement, went back into the pool for testing for USADA for drug testing, and he has officially said that he will fight no matter who the champion is on the White House card. So whether or not Dana should do that or not, at the end of the day, Jones fighting and then potentially Conor fighting are the two biggest stars that they could put on the card. I believe it's a tough fight for Jones if he was to fight Aspinall. Obviously, Jones is one of the greatest of all time and has beaten pretty much everyone he's ever faced. But this is a young fighter. He's a heavy hitter, So what are your thoughts on potential Aspinall Jones fight on the White House lawn?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, you have it really doesn't matter. Like, for example, the Madison Square Garden card, you had Conor headlining against Eddie Alvarez. If you're not a fan, you don't know who Eddie Alvarez is, right? But you had Conor in a title fight in a big spectacle against his next opponent. So as long as you have one of them, and it doesn't necessarily have to be those two, I guess, but to me, John Jones and Conor McGregor are names that cross over into celebrity status outside of bigger than the sport, bigger than sports in general, where your average person knows who it is based off of not just their fighting, how good they are in the UFC.
Good and bad reasons, especially when it comes to Conor.
and Jones.
Yeah.
But clearly, if as you know, if you're a UFC fan, you know the Aspinall Jones stuff. You know what it means, the build up. Even if it was a fight like Jones and Ngannou, it's also another built up thing. So you really just want to see one of those guys be there in a somewhat of a meaningful fight for the fans. But then, like you said, for the regular people that are tuning in just to look at the White House, Conor's fighting too. I'm going to stick around and watch it. It helps.
Now, we heard in the clip that Dana White said that they will probably not charge for tickets, that tickets will be comped. I don't know if that's going to be how it's just going to give out free tickets to anyone that can maybe first come, first serve, or it's just going to be all friends and family and people involved in the White House and the government and stuff like that. But that's an interesting part of where, because Dana had said 25,000 and they're not going to sell one ticket. So if that's the case, obviously it's probably going to be on pay-per-view. And, I don't know if it's going to be, usually the average price right now for pay-per-views, I think are, and here in America anyway, are $79.99. So I don't know if it's going to jump up for this or like I said, maybe they get it on broadcast TV and just do it like that. If it is a celebration of the country. Also, I'm curious about the time frame. UFC fights pay-per-view wise, they usually start 10 p.m. Eastern time. 7 p.m. would be the prelims and stuff. I mean, normally that's the time of everybody going to celebrate fireworks and stuff. So I'm curious if they're going to have it like during the day, or if they're just going to, have a fireworks display in the middle of the fight or like before the main event. Because obviously UFC usually bleeds over past midnight. So most likely the main event won't be actually on July 4th. It'll be on July 5th Eastern time. But so there's a lot of weird things to me, I guess, that don't really matter, but they'll figure it out. But because at the end of the day, this isn't just a normal UFC card. It's based on a specific day, a specific celebration, and a specific place that nothing has ever been held in this location. So it's very exciting. As far as Jones, I know some fans are going to feel like, doesn't deserve to get the main event of the White House because of a lot of people think he ducked Tom Aspinall and he, didn't fight certain challengers that he maybe should have at a time, and he's kind of held the heavyweight division hostage. But at the end of the day, it's a sport. It's also a business, and John Jones headlining the card against Aspinall, whoever the champion is, and Conor McGregor being on the card, and whoever else they can get. That's what they're going to do. People can say that they don't want Jones; they rather see him, but nobody wants to see Tom Aspinall fight anyone else except for John Jones. So whether it's right as far as the sport goes, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So, as far as who Conor could fight, I don't know. I actually would like to see him fight Paddy Pimblett, but I don't know if they're going to do that. Another one of the UFC young rising stars. Sean O'Malley's another name that's one of the bigger names.
Guys like that who are still fighting, I think, should have no problem getting on the card. O'Malley's a name, like you said. I mean, even someone who's like, well, I guess Poirier just retired, but even in like,
but that doesn't mean anything.
Those are bigger names than
Mac Holloway.
And you could and we haven't even talked about the women.
Yeah,
Amanda Nunes is a huge name. God forbid if Ronda Rousey came out of retirement and wanted to be a part of it. It probably could happen.
She's one of the few names of that caliber that after the White House announcement we didn't hear anything from. So,
which is good.
Yeah, I don't want to see Ronda. But yeah, with Harris most likely defending her title against Amanda Nunes coming up, rumored to be in December. Whoever wins that could potentially defend a title also during the White House card. So yeah, it's if you're a UFC fan, a mixed martial arts fan, it's a very exciting time to be a fan with this announcement and this card that's coming up. As of this recording, there's UFC card coming up in a few hours, so I will be looking forward to watching that. So from All In Sports and from my son,
thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, thank you, and we will see you next week.